Okay, this is part 7. And we're starting on October 9th, 2022. Around this time, I must have seen something somewhere about using Google Trends search results for the titles of the videos. And so what I did, I was at Chick-fil-A on Sunset and Highland, somewhere around there. And I just had this idea to do a close-up of the sauce packet as the chicken nugget was being dunked into it. And that was the whole video. There was no audio, no context, no nothing. Just a chicken nugget dunking into the sauce in close-up one time. And then to title it, I just searched chicken nuggets on Google Trends, and whatever the top trending search term was that had chicken nuggets in it, I used as the title for the video. And I think there were 5 or 6 chicken nuggets in the order, so I did that for each of the nuggets. And by the time I'd gotten home, those few videos had over 30,000 views and were still climbing. And I believe, a little bit later that night, they had over 100,000 views. So for the next several days, it looks like, and this is on YouTube, I might add, from October 9 to October 15 to October 27th. So for the month of October 2022, pretty much every day, I was going out having chicken fingers at least once a day or chicken nuggets once a day somewhere and just doing this over and over again. And as a result, on October 15th, the YouTube channel hit 1,000 subscribers. And I know whatever day the McPlant was, earlier in the year, November 13th. So from November to October, so about a year, all of a sudden, the YouTube took off. It was at like 300 subscribers a year before. And thanks to all of these chicken finger videos, it hit 1,000 subscribers, which was one of the important benchmarks for monetization. Of course, after you're doing that for a month, you can only do so much of that. And I know at some point I switched to French fries in January. In January. So this is in October. And it was building for the whole month of October, meeting chicken fingers and chicken nuggets. I probably made enough videos that I didn't have to keep making videos for that at that point because they're all scheduled. On October 30th, there was a lot of new AI stuff that had come out. And I'm guessing Midjourney was one of those things. And one of the first things I did with Midjourney was I made a fast food legend themed coloring book where every page were hamburger illustrations that were quite terrible. And I tried to describe it, what these grotesque hamburgers I'd been making looked like to keep with the theme. And the idea of doing the coloring book was just another way to, I love coloring, so it gave me something new to color, which was good. And it was a new way to get my name out, to introduce people to what I was doing with all of the fast food legend stuff in every different way. And this was just another avenue for that. And the online class that I'd been taking to start the food business, the initial concept I started to have around October 30th of 2022, which was I could go to these fairs and festivals, much like the 626 night market. And so the 626 night market actually had an online class you could take for $200 or $300 where they taught you everything you needed to know to run a food business at a fair how to apply for fairs because they're very competitive to get into, and the whole business they taught you. And so that was really, really wonderful class. And I learned a lot from that I would use later on with Fast Food Legend, just not in a food capacity. My initial concept that I had at that time was to make a sauce bar. Since everybody else at these markets sells food, I wanted to make a tent or a booth that was every kind of imaginable condiment in all kinds of different configurations. And because the AI stuff was still new, I was saying to it, like, take mustard, ketchup, barbecue sauce, hot sauce, like, give me a list of all the sauces, and then give me how many different configurations I could make of those sauces, on a menu. And as people were walking with food, I could try to sell them a little cup of sauce for, $1 or $2 or whatever, and just be like a bartender, instead of making drinks, making combinations of sauces. And I really loved this idea. And I must have completed the government class somewhere around this time because I had a note that I needed to open the bank account to receive the grant that I was going to apply for. And I must have applied for it by then. So anyway, on November 21st, I opened the bank account to receive the funds. And I believe I received the funds sometime in December of that year. And the next note I have here is January 6th, 2023. I must have had the money by then because I'm starting to figure out how to package the food for the restaurant. So let's talk about that. By now I realize that the best thing I should do is start a ghost kitchen, because as I would be on Grubhub or DoorDash or anything like that, and when I was hungry, and I'd be browsing the listings, and this had gone on for even before the pandemic, it was so competitive with the ghost kitchens that people were just trying to come up with the most outrageous names they could to grab your attention. And I remember one being called like, "Bitch, what's a quesarita?" Something like that. And, like, "Fuck this burger," like all kinds of outrageous names. But because everybody was now doing that for at least a couple years, the names weren't as outrageous anymore, and it was still just as competitive, if not more competitive. And I thought the thing that's not competitive here, the thing that's very similar, is that all the photographs of the foods look alike. Here's a burger, here's a slice of pizza, here's a plate of tacos. They usually have similar backgrounds, similar photographs. And I thought, well, if I could sell the burger with the sauce poured all over it, like in the videos, that would stick out. That would be like kind of shocking and catch your attention. So that's what I set out to do. And I went downtown to all of the the real restaurant supply places. And in the Thai one, there were these soup containers that are made for takeout pho and takeout ramen and stuff like that, where it's a round soup container with a tray up top, and you would put the noodles in the tray, and when the customer received the delivery, they would dump the noodles from the tray into the soup below. And this appealed to me, so I was able to get some samples. I called the manufacturer off the box, and she sent me samples of the different sizes. I knew that the best and easiest way and most stupidest way, because after all, we're trying to do something stupid and make it stupider, would be to actually just sell microwavable cheeseburgers like you might buy at a gas station. And I knew I could get those wholesale at the restaurant supply places as well. So I bought a case of the cheeseburgers and I put them in my freezer. And I got these samples of these soup containers. And I bought 1-gallon jugs of ketchup, mustard, mayonnaise, and barbecue sauce. And it took some time. It took a week or 2 weeks of playing with this every day. And I know we've got video and photos of it somewhere. of figuring out how to package this. Ultimately, what worked best was this one particular size soup container that was just a little bit wider than the diameter of the cheeseburger. You'd microwave the cheeseburger, put it in the tray where you would have put the noodles, and you just filled the soup container with sauce. And it was so specific. I mean, the amount of work I put into this, you'd pump the ketchup, twist the soup container a little bit, pump the mustard, twist the soup container a little bit, pump the barbecue sauce, twist the soup container a little bit, pump the mayonnaise. And it was intentionally a dark color, a light color, a dark color, a light color in a spiraling shape as you kept twisting the cup. And this was the best way that when the customer took out the hamburger, placed it on the plate or on the table, and then dumped the sauce over it, it would achieve a beautiful look to it. Because if you did it the other way, like everything just turned brown, right? Or dark green or whatever. So it was a super delicate thing, but I figured it out. And to make sure that people understood it was a work of art after they purchased it, I also included a bib, a plastic bib, like a lobster bib, disposable bib, and instruction sheets. And I'm sure I have copies of the instruction sheets somewhere, but they were really great instruction sheets on how you were supposed to take the burger out of the packaging and handle it and then just dump sauce all over it, how to eat it and all that stuff. And it was really great, and I was quite proud of it, actually. Once I had all of these things in place, there was a taco restaurant across the street from where I was living, and they were really nice to me. I ate dinner there a lot when I was tired, and I met with them a few times because they were looking to expand and to do more ghost kitchen kind of stuff. And we signed a contract, and I got insurance and all that stuff, and I opened a virtual restaurant, a ghost kitchen on DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats, all that stuff, with them being the host, so that if somebody placed an order, they'd receive the order. I'd buy the food. I'd provide them with everything. I showed them how to assemble everything. And if someone placed an order, they'd fulfill the order and keep half of the profit. And that was our agreement. And it was a impossible process to sign up with all these Grubhub and DoorDash services. I can't tell you how frustrating and stupid it was, and how little customer service there is, even for the restaurants. And anyway, eventually we got there, and I really enjoyed taking a lot of time to write the descriptions of the food for those apps and websites, and the description of the restaurant. And I really put a lot of care into it to really come up with something that would shock people and make them question if I was serious or not, make them question how stupid this was, and could I make it stupider? Things like that. What ended up happening, and this is really funny, is that I'd get hungry and I'd be scrolling through those apps. And it happened 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, I mean, a bunch of times that I'd look at something and I'd be like, what the hell is that? And then I'd realize it was my own restaurant with my own stuff that I had designed to trick people with. And I kept falling for my own thing. The other thing that happened that was amazing was that I didn't know when you sign up for these apps, they send a professional photographer to your restaurant to photograph the food in a uniform way. And so I'd have to call these photographers and say, look, you have to come to my apartment across the street from the restaurant, and I'll assemble the food. And they were all agreeable, which was kind of surprising. And the second photographer who came looked at what I was doing, and he just loved it. And he said, it's the perfect thing and he called it the Instagram to trash can pipeline, which I thought was so brilliant, because that's what I was really talking about in the first place, because of my original experience at Smoke and Fire. And I thought it was it was so out in the open, this food waste for Instagram. I thought it was really great. Anyway, in the end, nobody ever purchased a single thing. I kept posting on TikTok asking people to order. Nobody bought. We never sold a single hamburger. I spent all the money getting that whole restaurant thing going from the grant. And about 2 months later, we were starting to talk about they wanted the space in the freezer back, and, it was taking up room and everything. And just then, early in the morning, a drunk driver drove straight into the front of the restaurant. The restaurant apparently did not have the proper insurance, and it closed for 2 or 3 months. And the whole ghost kitchen thing was gone, and that was the end of that entire episode. But it was fun while it lasted. I'm going to pause.